This video is about she took her kids to the open market and a stranger started a conversation. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The sun shone brightly over Maplewood, casting golden rays upon the bustling open market. Sarah, a single mother of two, felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety as she navigated the crowded stalls. Her children, Oliver, age 8, and Lucy, age 6, darted around, their laughter ringing amidst the chatter of vendors hawking fresh produce and homemade crafts. "Mom, look, they have strawberries!" Lucy squealed, her golden curls bouncing as she pointed towards a stall overflowing with vibrant red fruit. Sarah smiled, her heart warming at the sight of her daughter's enthusiasm. "Let us get some, sweetheart, but we need to stick together, all right?" "Okay." Lucy nodded, her bright eyes filled with determination. Oliver, already distracted by a display of handmade wooden toys, barely heard his mother's admonition. As they edged closer to the strawberry stall, Sarah noticed a man standing nearby, his silhouette tall and commanding against the clear blue sky. He wore a crisp white shirt that clung to his broad shoulders, and his dark pants seemed to accentuate his long legs. A hint of intrigue caught her attention, almost pulling her focus away from her children. "Mom, can I get a toy?" Oliver's voice brought her back to the moment. He held a small carved horse, his eyes wide with hope. "Let us wait a little, Ollie. We still need to buy some food," Sarah replied, trying to keep her frustration at bay. Balancing her children's desires with the reality of their budget often felt like a delicate dance. Just then, the man stepped closer, a warm smile breaking across his face. "Those are quite the impressive horses," he said, nodding towards the toy. "Handmade, I assume?" Sarah's heart skipped as she looked up at him. "Yes, they are. My son has a knack for finding the best ones." She gestured to Oliver, who was now engrossed in examining the intricate details of the toy. The man crouched down to Oliver's level, his gaze kind and inviting. "You have a good eye, young man. I think it takes a special skill to spot quality craftsmanship." "Thank you," Oliver replied, puffing out his chest proudly. It was clear he enjoyed the attention. With a chuckle, the man shifted his eyes back to Sarah, lingering just a moment too long, as if contemplating something. "I am Jake," he introduced himself, extending a hand toward her. "Sarah," she replied, shaking his hand hesitantly. The contact sent a jolt through her, surprising her with its intensity. "And this is Oliver and Lucy." "Nice to meet you all," he said, his smile deepening. "Are you regulars at this market?" "Sometimes we come when we can," Sarah answered, her cheeks warming slightly under his gaze. "It is a good way to spend a Saturday." "I agree. There is something about the energy here, isn't he there?" Jake glanced around, then returned his focus to Sarah, his expression earnest. "It is refreshing." Lucy, noticing the exchange, tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, can we get the strawberries now?" "Of course, hon," Sarah replied, her attention torn between her daughter and the man in front of her. "Jake, do you come here often?" she asked, trying to keep the conversation flowing. "More often than I probably should," he confessed with a slight grin. "It is a nice break from my usual routine. I tend to get lost in my work." "What do you do?" Oliver chimed in, looking up at him with wide eyes. Jake chuckled. "I am in finance. Very exciting, I assure you, but it keeps me busy." "That sounds boring," Oliver said bluntly, making both Sarah and Jake laugh. "That is a fair point," Jake replied, his laughter genuine. "Sometimes I wonder if I should trade my suits for a more adventurous life." "Like building toys?" Lucy piped up, her head tilting in curiosity. "Exactly," Jake said, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "Maybe I'll start designing toys instead." In this brief moment, an unspoken connection seemed to pulse between them, a subtle chemistry sparking in the air. For Sarah, the warmth of Jake's presence was comforting yet unfamiliar, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. "Mom, the strawberries," Lucy reminded her, breaking the spell. Sarah cleared her throat, stepping back slightly. "Right, let us get those." She turned away, leading her children towards the stall. But she could feel Jake's gaze on her, a lingering warmth that sent butterflies fluttering in her stomach. While Sarah engaged with the vendor, her mind wandered. Was she even ready to entertain the idea of dating again? The thought was terrifying yet tantalizing. Jake seemed different, an aura of confidence radiated from him, an energy that drew her in. After purchasing the strawberries, she turned to find Jake still nearby, now examining another stall. He caught her eye and smiled, his expression open and inviting. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Sarah asked, feeling a mixture of boldness and vulnerability. Not yet, but I am still searching, Jake replied, his gaze lingering on her for a moment before he gestured toward a nearby stand. They have a local honey that is supposed to be amazing. Want to join me? She hesitated, glancing down at her kids. I should really. Just for a moment, he pressed, his tone gentle but insistent. They have samples, and I could use a partner in crime. The playful challenge in his eyes ignited a spark of adventure within her. Okay, just for a moment, she relented, her heart racing. But I can't leave the kids for too long. As they walked together, the sounds of the market enveloped them like a warm blanket. Vendors called out, children laughed, and the scent of freshly baked goods wafted through the air. Each step felt charged with energy, like they were part of something bigger. You tell me about your kids, Jake prompted, his interest genuine. What do they like to do? Sarah found herself smiling, her heart swelling with pride. Oliver loves anything that involves building Legos, blocks, you name it. Lucy is a little artist. She can spend hours drawing. That sounds wonderful, Jake said, his eyes sparkling. I can only imagine the creativity flowing in your household. It has its moments, she replied, laughter dancing in her voice. Like the time Lucy used finger paint to decorate the living room. She chuckled, shaking her head at the memory. Jake laughed heartily, the sound deep and genuine. I bet that was a fun cleanup. An understatement, Sarah replied, feeling a warmth spreading through her. But it is those moments that make it all worth it. Being a single parent must have its challenges, he said, his tone shifting slightly. But it sounds like you handle it with grace. She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. It is not always easy, she admitted, her voice dropping to a softer tone. But I try to make the best of it. They're worth it. Of course they are, Jake said, meeting her gaze. You're doing a remarkable job, Sarah. The sincerity in his words made her heart flutter, and for a brief moment she felt seen in a way she hadn't for years. But then her internal doubts crept in. Could a man like him ever genuinely appreciate a life like hers? Just then, Lucy's voice broke through her thoughts. Mom, look, there is a puppet show. Sarah's heart raced as she turned to see the colorful tent with its whimsical decorations. Let us go check it out, she exclaimed, a smile breaking across her face. Jake fell in step beside her, and as they approached the puppet show, Sarah felt a strange mix of joy and uncertainty. She was grateful for this fleeting moment of connection, but couldn't shake the worry that loomed in the back of her mind. As Lucy and Oliver squealed with delight at the puppets, Sarah couldn't help but glance at Jake, who was watching the children with an affectionate smile. Would there be more moments like this? Would they ever have the opportunity to explore what this chemistry might lead to? But she quickly shook off the thought, focusing instead on the joy of her children. For now, this day was theirs, a brief escape from reality, wrapped in laughter and new connections. What would the future hold? She could only wait and see. As the puppets danced and weaved their stories under the vibrant tent, Sarah found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The laughter of her children filled the air, a sound that ignited a warmth within her, as if sunlight had spilled into her heart. Jake stood beside her, his presence steady and calming. He watched Oliver and Lucy with an ease that gave Sarah a sense of comfort. It was as if he didn't just see them as children, but appreciated the innocence and joy they brought to the world. Your kids have good taste, he remarked, leaning slightly closer as a particularly animated puppet waved its arms. They certainly know how to pick the best entertainment. Thank you, Sarah replied, her gaze shifting to him. There was a sincerity in his eyes that made her feel vulnerable yet cherished. They love anything that allows them to use their imagination. I think that is so important, Jake said, his voice low and resonant. Imagination is what keeps us young, that helps us stay open to new experiences. He paused, a thoughtful look crossing his face. And new connections. The last part of his statement hung in the air between them, a delicate thread of unspoken possibilities. Sarah's heart quickened, and she glanced away, trying to focus on her children. Look, Lucy, isn't that puppet funny? She pointed out, her voice slightly strained. Yes, can he talk, Mom? Lucy asked, her eyes wide with wonder as the puppet began to engage the audience with a silly voice. Of course he can. Sarah replied, her voice light, but her mind still tangled in Jake's earlier words. She stole a glance at him, noting how he seemed to genuinely enjoy this moment, how his smile seemed to draw her in deeper. The puppet show continued, but Sarah's attention drifted back to Jake, who was leaning against a nearby post, arms crossed casually. She noted the way he wore his confidence. It wasn't boastful, but rather an embodiment of ease. Oliver, still lost in the story, leaned against her, his small shoulder pressing against her side. "Mom, can we get some snacks after this?" he asked, his voice hopeful. "Sure, sweetheart. We'll find something yummy," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with affection. She felt Jake's gaze on her, a comforting warmth that momentarily drowned out her insecurities. But then, a nagging thought crept back in. What was she doing? "Do your kids have any favorite snacks?" Jake asked, pulling her from her reverie. "Nobody can resist kettle corn," she answered, a smile breaking through the veil of her doubts. "It's a market staple." "Then kettle corn it is," he grinned, and for a moment the world around them seemed to fade away. But as the show neared its end and the puppets struck their final bow, Sarah felt a pang of uncertainty. Could she really allow herself to enjoy this moment? To entertain the thought of spending more time with Jake? Lucy clapped her hands together, beaming. "Mom, can we get pictures with the puppets?" "Let us see if we can," Sarah said, her voice light, but the tension in her chest tightened. She turned to Jake, catching him watching her, an expression of unspoken understanding passing between them. "Want to join us?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. Jake smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I'd love to." As they made their way toward the puppet stage, Sarah's heart raced. She felt the warmth of his presence beside her, a stark contrast to her self-doubt. But just as they reached the front, a sudden flurry of activity distracted her. "Mom, I want to go first," Lucy exclaimed, tugging on Sarah's arm. "Okay, hold on, sweetie," Sarah replied, kneeling beside her. "You can go first, but remember to smile big, okay?" "Okay." Lucy beamed, her excitement contagious. As she posed with the puppets, Sarah turned to see Jake watching them, his expression softening. "I can see the resemblance," he said quietly, his gaze flickering between her and Lucy. "She has your light." "Thank you," Sarah said, her breath catching. "I try to encourage that in them. It is important to me." Jake nodded, his eyes holding a depth that made her feel both seen and vulnerable. "You're doing an incredible job, Sarah. It is inspiring." Her heart fluttered at the compliment, but the doubt crept back in. "I am just trying to get by," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Some days are harder than others. Even the best parents have tough days," Jake said, his tone steady yet gentle. "You're doing more than just getting by, you're recreating a beautiful life for them." A moment of silence passed between them, one that felt heavy with possibility and unspoken tension. Just then, Oliver broke in, pulling at her sleeve. "Mom, can I get a picture with the puppets now?" "Of course," she replied, grateful for the distraction. As the children took turns posing, Sarah felt Jake's presence like a steady anchor beside her. After the photo session, they walked toward the kettle corn stand, Sarah feeling more at ease, yet still caught in the web of her thoughts. "So, what is your favorite snack?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation to lighter ground. "I think I'd have to say popcorn in any form," Jake replied with a grin. "But kettle corn is definitely a treat." "Good choice," she said, her laughter mingling with the sounds of the market. As they reached the stand, the smell of warm caramelized sugar filled the air, and Sarah felt her mouth water. "2 bags, please," she asked the vendor, handing over a few bills. While they waited, Sarah noticed a couple nearby, locked in an animated discussion. The woman pointed at a stall, while the man chuckled at something she said, his arm wrapped around her waist. "Do you ever think about how life changes?" Jake asked suddenly, pulling her from her observation. "Like, one moment you were living one life, and in an instant, everything shifts." His question caught her off guard. "I guess so," she replied cautiously, her heart racing. "Why do you ask?" "Just pondering how we often miss the small moments while chasing after what we think we want," he mused, his gaze drifting slightly. "I suppose I've had my share of life changes lately." The kettle corn vendor handed them their bags, and Sarah took one, her mind still spinning from his words. "What sort of changes?" she asked, genuinely curious. He hesitated, the warmth in his demeanor fading slightly. "Just reorganizing priorities, I guess. It is easy to lose sight of what truly matters when you get caught up in work." Her heart ached for him, sensing an underlying story he hadn't shared. "That sounds tough," she said softly, hoping to encourage him to open up. "It's easy to get lost in the hustle." "It really is," Jake replied, his eyes locking onto hers. "But being here today, seeing you and your kids, it is refreshing. It makes me want to be better." "Better?" she echoed, surprised by the weight of his words. "Yeah," he said, his gaze earnest. "It is easy to forget what happiness looks like, especially when you've been focused on the grind for so long." Sarah could feel a mixture of vulnerability and hope swelling between them, the moment heavy with unexpressed desires. "You seem happy now," she said softly, wondering if she was reading him right. "I am," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't help but wonder what it would look like if I chased happiness more often." Her heart raced, and she felt a pulse of chemistry igniting between them again. "Maybe you should," she encouraged, her voice soft but steady. "You deserve to find that kind of happiness." "Maybe I will," he said, his eyes lingering on hers. "You make it sound possible." The intensity of the moment washed over them, and Sarah felt a sudden urge to bridge the gap between them. But the reality of her life loomed back in, a reminder of her responsibilities. "We should probably get back to the kids," she said reluctantly, still feeling the connection crackling in the air. "Right," Jake replied, a hint of disappointment in his voice. "But I'd love to see you again, Sarah. Maybe we can continue this conversation." His offer felt like a lifeline, yet that tugged at her heart. I don't know," she stammered. "I am not sure if I am ready for more." "Just coffee, then," he said earnestly. "No expectations, just two people sharing stories." Something in his tone resonated within her, igniting a flicker of hope. "Okay," she agreed, feeling the warmth of possibility spreading through her. "Coffee sounds nice." "Great," Jake said, his smile returning, brighter than before. "Let us exchange numbers." As they swapped contact information, Sarah felt a rush of mixed emotions. The warmth of connection was intoxicating, but the reality of her life weighed heavily on her shoulders. Could she really walk this path with someone new? As the last remnants of the puppet show faded and laughter from a crowd began to disperse, Sarah felt a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation swirl inside her. The warmth of Jake's presence was intoxicating, yet the reality of her responsibilities loomed like a cloud overhead. "Mom, I am hungry." Lucy tugged at Sarah's sleeve, her small face scrunched with impatience. "Okay, sweetheart, let us grab that kettle corn," Sarah replied, taking a deep breath to center herself. She turned back to Jake, who was watching her with that same open expression, as if he could see right through her uncertainty. "Do you want to join us for a snack?" she asked, feeling a flutter of hope. "I'd love to," Jake said with a grin. "Kettle corn is the perfect snack for a day like this." As they made their way back to the kettle corn stand, the bustling market filled with familiar sounds, the laughter of children, playful banter between vendors, the distant strumming of a musician. Yet Sarah's mind buzzed with thoughts of Jake. Could she really navigate the complexities of a new relationship while raising her kids? "Mom, can I carry the kettle corn?" Oliver asked, his bright eyes shining with eagerness. "Sure, just be careful," Sarah replied, handing him the warm bag. The sweet scent wafted through the air, momentarily distracting her from her worries. "So, what is the plan after snacks?" Jake asked, falling into step beside her. "Just wandering a bit, I think. There are some great handmade crafts I wanted to check out," she said, her voice lightening with anticipation. "I've been looking to find some new decorations for our home." "Sounds like a fun way to spend the afternoon," Jake replied, his tone encouraging. "I am all for supporting local artisans." Watching him interact with her kids, Sarah felt her heart soften. He genuinely seemed to enjoy the company, engaging Oliver in conversation about his favorite toys. "Are you into dinosaurs?" he asked, his voice animated. "Yeah, I have a ton of them at home," Oliver replied, eyes sparkling. "Maybe we can trade dinosaur facts later," Jake suggested, a playful glint in his eyes. "Okay." Oliver beamed, clearly thrilled. Lucy sidled up next to Sarah, her small hand slipping into her mother's. "Mom, I like him," she said quietly, glancing up at Jake. Sarah's heart swelled. "Me too, honey," she murmured, feeling a warmth spread through her. But as quickly as it came, doubts clouded her mind. What if Jake didn't want to deal with the complexities of her life? What if this was just a fleeting moment that would evaporate like morning dew? "Have you been to this market before?" Jake asked, shifting his focus back to Sarah as they reached the kettle corn stand. "Just a few times. It is one of my favorite places to bring the kids. The energy here is contagious," she replied, her smile genuine. "I can see why," he said, leaning slightly closer. "It reminds me of the farmers' markets in my hometown. There is something about the community atmosphere that feels right." "Right?" she echoed, feeling a sudden connection. "Like a sense of belonging?" "Exactly," Jake said, his gaze steady. "I've missed that. Lately, I've been too caught up in my own world." Sarah felt an unexpected pull at her heartstrings. "It is easy to lose sight of what matters," she admitted softly. "Especially when you were trying to make things work." As they received their kettle corn, Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of understanding between them. Jake's dark eyes were filled with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "It is refreshing to talk to someone who gets it," he said, his voice low. "Someone who understands the daily grind." "Thanks," she replied, feeling a warmth bloom in her chest. "I try to juggle everything, but some days are harder than others." "Those days are the ones that define us," Jake said, a hint of admiration in his tone. "It is admirable, really." "Admirable. I am just doing my best," she said, a hint of self-doubt creeping into her voice. "But your best is impressive," he countered, a hint of challenge in his eyes. "You be raising two wonderful kids while managing everything else. That is not easy." His words washed over her, soothing her insecurities like a gentle tide. "Thank you," she said, her voice softening. "That means a lot." "Good," Jake replied, his gaze lingering on her. "You should know how amazing you are." As they moved through the market, Sarah felt a rush of warmth from Jake's encouragement, but a voice in her head questioned if she was worthy of such praise. Just then, Lucy's laughter broke through her thoughts as she spotted a colorful stall selling handmade bracelets. "Mom, look," she squealed, pulling Sarah toward the table. "Let us check it out," Sarah said, her excitement rekindled. While they browsed the bright array of colorful beads and trinkets, Sarah stole glances at Jake, who was talking animatedly with Oliver about the various colors. The sight brought an unexpected pang of longing. Would things ever be simple enough for her to truly explore this connection with him? "Mom, can I get this one?" Lucy held up a delicate bracelet adorned with rainbow beads. "Of course, sweetie," Sarah replied, her heart swelling. "That's beautiful." "I want one too," Oliver chimed in, picking up a blue bracelet. "Okay, two it is," she said, smiling at the vendor while Jake watched with a grin. "What do you think, Jake? Should we treat the kids to some new accessories?" "Only if they promise to wear them with pride," he joked, his eyes sparkling. "Deal." Lucy and Oliver chorused, their laughter infectious. As the vendor wrapped up their purchases, Sarah felt lighter, buoyed by the joy of her children and the inexplicable connection growing between her and Jake. But as they moved away from the stall, Sarah's thoughts began to spiral again. Could she really let him into her life? "Want to check out one of the craft stalls?" Jake asked, his voice cutting through her worries. "Sure, that sounds fun," she responded, eager to push aside the doubt. They weaved through the market, stopping to admire various handmade goods. A small gallery of paintings caught Sarah's eye, and she felt drawn to a vibrant canvas filled with swelling colors. "Wow, this is beautiful," she said, stepping closer. "It feels alive." "Kind of like today," Jake mused, standing beside her. "There is a heartbeat in his marked and energy that is infectious." She turned to him, caught off guard by the intensity in his gaze. "You really feel that?" "Absolutely," he replied, his voice earnest. "It is not just the art, it is the people, the stories. It reminds me why I want to connect more with life." "Life can be chaotic," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Finding meaningful connections is harder than it seems." "I know," he said, his tone turning serious. "But I think it is worth pursuing." Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the world around them faded. Sarah could feel the weight of that unspoken connection, a thread pulling them closer. But doubt crept back in. Was it wise to open her heart? "Should we get back to the kids?" she suggested, her voice wavering. "Of course," Jake replied, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. "But I am glad we met today, Sarah." "Me too," she said, feeling a sense of longing wash over her. "It has been nice." "Let me walk you back," he offered, falling into step beside her as they made their way through the market. As they approached the children, who were huddled over their kettle corn, Sarah glanced at Jake. "Thank you for today. I wasn't sure I could handle it all, but, he prompted, his gaze encouraging. "But it turned out to be one of the best days Ivy had in a while," she admitted, her heart pounding. "I am glad to hear that," he said, his smile genuine. "It is always nice to share moments like this." As they reached the children, Sarah felt a rush of hesitation. Was she brave enough to take a leap? "We should definitely do this again," she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "Definitely," Jake replied, a spark of excitement lighting up his eyes. "How about next Saturday, same time?" "Sure, I'd like that," she said, her heart racing. "Well, great," he said, his voice warm. "I'll text you the details." As they exchanged goodbyes, Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. She watched Jake walk away, his figure melting with the throng of market-goers, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had sparked between them. "Mom, can we go on more?" As the children finished the last of their kettle corn, Sarah felt a warmth spread through her, still buzzing from her interactions with Jake. They sat on a park bench at the edge of the market, watching as people milled about, laughter and chatter filling the air. "Can we come back next weekend, Mom?" Lucy asked, her mouth smeared with buttery sweetness from the kettle corn. "Of course, sweetheart, we can get more strawberries," Sarah replied, smiling down at her daughter. The joy in Lucy's eyes warmed her heart. "Maybe we can get that toy from the man too." Oliver chimed in, still a little giddy from the attention Jake had given him. Sarah's heart fluttered at the thought, memories of the tall stranger sparking a mix of excitement and apprehension within her. Could she really allow herself to explore this connection? "Let us see how the week goes, okay?" "Okay," Lucy replied, her voice bright before launching into a new story about the puppet show. Sarah listened, her mind half on her daughter and half on Jake. Time passed quickly, and soon the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. "All right, team, it is time to head home," Sarah announced, pulling her purse over her shoulder. As they walked back to the car, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of Jake's gaze lingering on her, the warmth of his words still echoing in her mind. She had spent so long focused on the kids and her responsibilities that the idea of a new relationship felt foreign yet enticing. "Mom?" Oliver asked, pulling her from her thoughts. "Are you going to see that man again?" Sarah hesitated. "Maybe." We exchanged numbers. "Does that mean you like him?" he asked innocently. "Whoa, slow down, buddy," Sarah said, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "It is not that simple." "But he was nice, he was smiling a lot," Lucy chimed in, her wide eyes darting between Sarah and Oliver. "I just, it is complicated, sweeties," Sarah said, feeling her cheeks flush. "It is hard to explain." "Complicated?" Oliver echoed in a dramatic tone, mimicking what he'd seen in cartoons. "Like the stories you tell us at bedtime?" "Exactly like that," she laughed, ruffling his hair. As they reached the car, Sarah's heart raced. Would she really be able to explore something new with Jake? She knew she had to take things slowly, there was so much at stake. The week dragged on, filled with the humdrum of daily life, school drop-offs, grocery shopping, and the endless cycle of laundry. Each day, memories of the market and Jake's smile surfaced, bringing a flutter of hope amid her routine. By Friday, Sarah's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had received a text from Jake suggesting they meet at a cozy cafe near the market the next day. "Can't he wait to continue our conversation? Coffee at 10? She stared at the message, her finger hovering over the keyboard. Should she respond with enthusiasm or play it cool? After much deliberation, she replied, "Sounds great, looking forward to it." As the day turned to night, Sarah found herself tossing and turning. What would she wear? Should she do her hair differently? Would he even find her interesting? Thoughts spiraled as she felt a twinge of anxiety. "Mom, are you okay?" Lucy asked from the doorway, her small figure silhouetted against the soft glow of the hallway light. "Yeah, honey, just thinking," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. "About the man?" Lucy asked, her voice hushed with curiosity. "Maybe," Sarah said, her heart fluttering at the thought of Jake. "But it's just coffee, no big deal." "Promise you I'll have fun?" Lucy insisted, her innocent eyes filled with concern. "I promise," Sarah whispered, pulling her daughter into a warm embrace. "Thank you for caring." The next morning, Sarah woke up with a knot in her stomach. After dressing in a comfortable yet cute outfit, she took a deep breath, looking at herself in the mirror. She felt a mixture of nervous energy and determination. "Mom, don't forget the strawberries," Oliver called from the kitchen. "Coming," she replied, forcing a smile. The children were excited, oblivious to the inner turmoil she was facing about her meeting with Jake. As they arrived at the cafe, Sarah's heart raced. The warm aroma of coffee wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. She spotted Jake sitting at an outdoor table, his figure looking relaxed yet slightly tense. "Hey, you made it," he said, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Of course," she replied, trying to suppress her nervousness. "I wouldn't miss it." As she sat down, she noticed the way he leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with interest. "How was your week?" "It was busy," Sarah replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You know, the usual." "Busy can be good, keeps us focused," he said, taking a sip of his coffee. "True," she mused, feeling a sense of ease wash over her. "But it can also be overwhelming." "Agreed, we need balance," he replied, his gaze steady. "So, tell me about your kids. What do they love to do?" As the conversation flowed, Sarah felt herself relax. She shared stories about the kids' antics, their laughter, and how they had turned the house into a makeshift art gallery. I love that they were so creative, Jake said, leaning in. It reminds me of my childhood. I used to draw a lot. Really? She asked, intrigued. What did you draw? Mostly dinosaurs, he laughed, his eyes sparkling with nostalgia. I was obsessed with them. Oliver would have loved that, she said, feeling a warmth blossom in her chest. He is constantly learning about them. Maybe we should all go to a museum together sometime, Jake suggested, his tone light yet sincere. The idea sent a thrill through her, but that crept back. That could be fun, but I don't want to rush anything, she said, her voice wavering slightly. Of course, Jake replied, his expression softening. I wouldn't want to push you. But as they continued to talk, Sarah felt a connection grow between them, the chemistry palpable. Each laugh, each shared story felt like a thread weaving them closer together at a tapestry of possibilities. Yet, as the conversation progressed, Sarah couldn't shake the worry that nagged at her. What if things didn't work out? What if she got hurt again? Sarah? Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. You okay? You seem a bit lost in thought. Just thinking, she admitted, a faint blush creeping across her cheeks. About how different this is from my everyday life. That's kind of the point, isn't it? He asked gently. To step outside our bubbles. Maybe, she replied, grateful for his understanding. But that's hard to shake the worries. I have so much to think about. I get that. Life can get complicated, he said, his eyes searching hers. But I promise I am not here to complicate things further, just an open conversation, you know? Sarah felt the swell of relief, but her heart still hesitated. It's just I don't want to disappoint you, she said quietly. Disappointment comes from expectations, he replied, his voice steady. Let us just enjoy the moment. As they continued to talk, Sarah found herself leaning into the connection, the laughter easing her doubts, if only for a moment. But just as Jake reached across the table, brushing his fingers against hers, a loud crash jolted her back to reality. A toddler at a nearby table had toppled a stack of plates, causing a ruckus. Sarah flinched instinctively, pulling her hand away. Everything okay? Jake asked, concern flooding his eyes. Yeah, it is fine, she replied quickly, her heart racing. But the moment had passed, and Sarah felt a rush of embarrassment. Hey, Jake said softly, his voice cutting through her embarrassment. No pressure, we were just talking, right? Right, she nodded, forcing a smile. Just things sometimes feel overwhelming. I get it, he said, his gaze steady. But we here now, and that's what matters. His words hung in the air, a reminder of their connection. Yet Sarah's mind raced with doubt. Could she really allow herself to embrace this? I am really enjoying this, she admitted, her gaze meeting his. But I don't know where it leads. Let us not worry about where it leads, let us just see where today takes us, he said, his voice low and sincere. Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, an ember of possibility. Okay, she whispered, her heart pounding. Good, that is all I want, Jake said, a smile breaking across his face. As they finished their coffees, the world around them melted away, leaving only the two of them, and then